Welcome, one and all. This is the 8th episode of the Unbanned Podcast, and we have one thing to say. Unbanned 8th Works Marvel. My name's Jake. I've got my best buds ever here, Jordan.
I'm Jordan.
And Justin.
And I've been introduced second for the first time.
Yeah, we're switching it up today.
God.
It's a
Inconsistency. I don't like this.
It's an episode of change, let's put it that way.
I was so ready to do something different, and then I just got thrown for a loop.
Well, today, guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. There was a little thing announced, like a brand new format called Pioneer or something. We're going to be talking about that.
It's pretty niche. You may not have heard of it.
Yeah, I think we're going to be we're the first podcast to actually talk about Pioneer.
Yeah, definitely. We got in on the ground floor on this one.
Yeah, we definitely are not a week late or anything. But we have actual deck results, so there.
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing the format for a few days now, so.
And I've just been brewing.
I have a good idea for a brew. I want to tell you about it.
Okay, well, we can, throw it up on the Patreon and all that.
Turbo cool.
But before we get to the Pioneer and all the new fun decks coming out of that format, we have to talk about the banned and restricted announcement. Were we right? Were we wrong? You guys already know at this point, but we'll talk about it. Then we might do some news at the end there. We'll find out. It'll be a surprise for everyone, I think, whether or not we do news. Stay tuned.
Is there news? Do we have news this week? What happened? Tell me.
We have some fantastic news, Jordan. The fantastic news this week is that Field of the Dead got banned.
Wow! Oh my gosh. That's almost like a segue.
So, yeah, we were right. They announced that, and by we were right, I mean, we discussed that we would probably ban Field of the Dead. It's probably getting banned. And then we were right. It works. I'm happy about that.
I'm just saying that card died for Wizard Sins. They didn't give us any way to interact with lands, and then we got punished for it.
I disagree with that, because aside from just giving us Stone Rain, we have a lot of land destruction spells. We have Assassin's Trophy. You can unmoored ego them, and it just didn't help.
We just needed a Blood Sun reprint, straight up. They just should have done that.
That probably would have been fine, but...
Or something like that.
Maybe that ruins a mechanic in Ikoria or something.
So do you think they're going to do a callback to Field of the Dead on a card at some point?
What do you mean?
Just like a zombie card that's when it enters the battlefield, if you have 7 or more lands of different names, create a zombie or something like that. It's like a funny little callback.
When they should do the opposite. When this enters the battlefield, if you control 7 or more zombies with different names, create a land.
So you just create a land just out of nowhere?
Create a token land.
We're playing Hearthstone over here with the mana crystal.
All right, both of
that
you.
Taps for 1 colorless.
All right, both of you stop sidetracking me. We got another thing to talk about, which is Arkham's Astrolabe also banned in Pauper, which...
So exciting.
If you didn't know that was coming, you probably haven't been playing Pauper. It's been an issue.
Jeskai Astrolabe, I can't remember what they called it. It was Jeskai Snow. Jeskai Snow was a problem. I played against it. It was very powerful, very good deck. Not unbeatable, but just being able to play 3 colors in a deck that doesn't have fetch lands or dual lands is kind of nuts.
Yeah, It also is just consistency. It's kind of like the Git probe problem. Gitaxian probe, for those of you not in the know. Banned in pretty much every format because it's a free spell, effectively, that just draws you a card. So you get free information of your opponent's hand, and then you just get the card back, so...
And the problem with Astrolabe, or Astrolab, or terrible snow artifact, whatever you want to call it.
The Devil's Artifact.
The Devil's Artifact. The problem with it is that it gave so much consistency because it just drew you cards over the game, because it slotted right into Koldotha Boros style of builds where you're just flickering all the permanents to get value. So that was a problem as well, and it was just...
Your mana also was actually perfect.
Yeah, you had perfect mana, you had this artifact that you could drop early to draw a card, and then later on you could flicker it to draw a card, return it to hand with your Skyfisher to draw cards. It was too much, far too much. Glad to see it gone, honestly, because it kind of shaped Pauper into something that it really wasn't, it felt like.
Yeah, it felt different from most Pauper decks. It was the snow-based Astrolabe decks were just obviously the best thing to be doing, and that's not where Pauper wants to be. That's not what it's supposed to be a format for.
I think that's about all you could say about Astrolabe and Pauper. It just probably should have been an uncommon, not a common. Kind of weird they made that a common.
I think they actually did it on purpose. I think they were trying to give a reason to play Snow besides Scred and Pauper, and just...
That's good enough reason for me.
Yeah, the Scred's powerful enough in that format. You don't need to make it better.
So back on Field of the Dead, though, I'm still not convinced it really needed to be banned that much. I think the larger problem with it is that green is still really good. And I said this in the last podcast. Ramp is still good. Like, without Field of the Dead, you can still just play a ramp deck. And that seems like what most people are doing with blue-green. And it's a little bit worrying. I think that it's still a very, very good deck. Maybe not the best deck in the format, but currently, in this meta, it's what everyone seems to be playing. So, what do you guys think?
My honest opinion, how do I say it, I guess? Nissa's a little too powerful. Me and Jordan were kind of chatting about this real quick before we started the podcast, that if you watch the Mythic Championship, it was being talked about a lot that if you get the turn 3 Nissa, the game's basically over at that point.
It's the type of thing that you need to deal with it right then, or you just lose the game extremely quickly afterward.
And seeing that in Standard just seems really oppressive, if that makes sense. Like, I just don't like thinking about having a card that if you play it on turn 3 and I don't have the answer, even if it's in my deck, if I don't have it in hand, then the game's over at that point. It just feels a little too powerful.
I feel like everyone is acting like that's the end of the road. If they turn 3 Nissa, you just lose. And it's basically true. Like, you don't normally come back from that point. But think about what has to happen for them to get to that point. Now, Paradise Druid has hexproof, so you don't normally interact with it. But the bird, you can get rid of that. You can kill it. You can be pressuring them to the point where Nissa doesn't really matter that much. I have killed people on turn 4 or 5 of this format pretty consistently. That's not hard to do. So while I think that Nissa does pose a big threat, and I'm not exactly sure why Wizards decided, hey, Llanowar Elves is leaving, let's reprint basically Birds of Paradise with a food mechanic stapled onto it into the format. I don't know why they did that, because it did enable a lot of this. But I don't think it's that bad. I really don't. I think that people are playing against these Oko decks and they're seeing that it's a big meta share and they're everywhere. But you gotta remember, when you ban a card, there's a power vacuum. The most powerful deck at the Mythic Championship was probably the Oko decks. Like, Field was warping the format and making it impossible to play certain strategies, but Oko was clowning on people. And folks just see that. It's only been about a week from now since Javier won that with a non-Oko deck.
By the way, congratulations, Javier Dominguez.
Congratulations, Javier. You're great. And people, I think, just saw these Oko decks and like, that's the starting point for the format. We're going to do that because it's powerful. And I'm seeing, at least on the ladder, not that many Oko decks. And when I play my Oko deck, I don't have a lot of success with it unless I do those lines where I'm like, turn 2 Oko, turn 3 Nissa. If you don't do that, I'm getting outclassed on every front.
I can definitely see how you beat it. It just seems as though it is so far past what the other decks are doing that you kind of are forced into playing it. Because even if you play an aggressive deck into this, like Javier did because he won with Gruul, even if you play an aggressive deck to get under them or to swing through them with Embercleave, it seems like you're often not fast enough. And I also don't know if I like the standard meta being in a place where you're either going to be up against a deck that's trying to kill you on turn 3, or you're up against a deck that's hitting a turn 2 Oko into a turn 3 Nissa. That doesn't sound like much fun to me. That sounds like the worst version of like Modern, but in Standard. Like what people think Modern is, that's like what Standard feels like right now. Where you're just dead on turn 3 every turn, or dead on turn 3 every game, you know? And it's not that much fun to play. Like, I've been playing Oko decks and I've been winning with them. It's not fun. Every game takes 40 minutes against mid-range opponents, and then against the aggro opponents, I'm just either dead on turn 3 or I stabilize and they concede.
I don't feel like the play patterns you are describing, and this is kind of from other conversations we've had talking about it outside of the podcast, so it's going to be hard for me to describe, but I don't think you're dead on turn 3 in this format. I don't think that's a good representation of where we're actually at. I think that there's a lot of play. I think that there's some very fast decks, there's some very controlling decks. A lot of the controlling decks haven't really come to fruition. Like, I've been playing Dance a lot. I've seen basically no mirror matches, and it has a great Oko matchup. It dumpsters that deck. People told me it would have a bad matchup, and I haven't really lost to an Oko deck yet. The entire reason I stopped playing it was because everyone else was not playing Oko. This is in Diamond and Mythic, by the way. So, at some point, everyone switched from Oko. I don't know if I'm just getting weird matchups where I'm not playing the people playing Oko, but on my end, I haven't actually played that much Oko.
I think it might have something to do with the tiers, because if you're playing on the ladder, once you get up above Platinum, I've noticed, in Platinum, people are completely fine with just playing the best deck. Once you get up above Plat to Diamond and Mythic, it seems as though players want to try to counter it and try to use that experience, I guess, to figure out what beats the best deck. Because I've noticed this as well when I play in Diamond. It's like, back when Field was the best deck, when I got to Diamond, I didn't run into that many Field of the dead decks. I ran into people countering Field.
It's really odd. But I basically just don't think that the format is bad enough that Oko can't be a part of it. It is a warping card. I don't think anyone can argue that, but on top of that, the Jeskai Fires list, for example, have a really crazy line of play where sometimes they just play Fires on 4, like drawn from Dreams, and then kill you on turn 5 because of the way Fires of Invention with the red and blue Cavaliers work. And you can't do anything about it. They just hit you for like 16. Mm-hmm. I don't know what Oko does against that.
In my experience, I've either stolen my opponent's Fires of Invention or I've destroyed it with the Brontodon.
You can't steal the Fires of Invention. It's an enchantment.
Yeah, you can.
You can steal artifacts and creatures with
artifact
Oko.
or creature.
No, I stole it with Agent of Treachery.
Oh. How do you have 7 mana on turn 5?
Nissa. What are you talking about? I played a turn 3 Nissa. You think I have a problem playing 7 drops?
I'm just saying there's ways to beat it, and I don't think we can... If we're banning things or like changing the format or looking at the format based on what the most nuts draws that are available in them, Legacy should have like half of the format banned.
I mean, well, Legacy and Standard are two entirely different beasts. Legacy has so many more ways to deal with things. In the format currently, I mentioned this earlier before we started the show, that there's 278 Okos in the Mythic Championship qualifier weekend. That is such a hard phrase to say. In the qualifier weekend, there was 278 Okos in the decks being submitted. There are almost 200, it was like 175, main deck copies of Noxious Grasp. It's like that.
I don't want to interrupt, sorry. It's been 5 days since the ban and restricted announcement. No one has done any deck testing. And there's a giant tournament to jump into that has a lot riding on it. I am shocked. I would be shocked if anyone was playing anything but Oko there.
Well, Oko didn't win the tournament though, and there were multiple decks in the top 8 of the Mythic Championship that were different. Why are people not playing that instead? The deck that won the tournament wasn't Oko.
Because Oko was the most successful deck that wasn't banned.
Exactly. It is consistent. And that's what you want in Magic. You want that consistency.
But that's what I'm saying, is I think that the Oko decks were a very good play at the Mythic Championship because they were good against the field decks, and they were very good against the aggro decks that were trying to beat the field decks. I think that's a good meta call. I don't think that's going to be where we are in Standard for the next 6 months.
I mean, we'll just have to wait and see, I think. I'm going to make the bet that Oko is going to need a ban, or Nissa's going to need a ban. Probably Nissa. At the same time, it's rough. I don't know what you hit in those decks if it does become oppressive, because everything's just sort of works together, you know?
And here's the thing, guys. Just laying this down really quick. I hate Oko. I despise that card. I despise almost every single Planeswalker they've released in the past year. But I still don't think it should be banned.
We'll have to see. If things get better and there's less Oko running around, then obviously we wouldn't need to ban it. We only want to keep things diverse in the format because that's when Standard's good. And I did want to say, though, I also hate Oko and the Planeswalkers they've been printing. I mentioned the other day, I remember when Chandra Torch of Defiance was printed. Chandra being my favorite card behind Lightning Bolt. It's like it goes Lightning Bolt and then Chandra. And Chandra was considered insane because she had 2 upticks, 2 +1 abilities.
+4 abilities altogether.
Yeah, 4 abilities as well. And I remember people were like, she's only 4 mana. She's the red Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is insane. And now I look at like Teferi and Narset and Oko and Nissa, and I'm just like, wow, Planeswalkers have gotten out of hand a little bit. This is crazy.
I've always been an advocate to say I'm done with Planeswalkers. I think they're just too much for this game, because I guess how you think about it is no matter what its loyalty is, you're gaining that much life along with getting abilities that are pretty powerful, especially on certain Planeswalkers.
I think Planeswalkers have always been value engines, yeah.
They end up a lot of the time being the best thing you can do in the late game.
Yeah, so I guess what happens is, and this is why I don't like Planeswalkers, because I've ended up doing this. Like I said, I hate Planeswalkers. I can't stand them. I wish they were never created. How I always do it is I make my deck, and then, like, let's say I'm on Arena. I make my deck. I finish it up. I'm like, okay, this deck's perfect. Now I'm going to search my colors and search Planeswalker and then throw 7 of them in there. Because that's what you have to do at this point. Like, there's not very many decks out there. Like, Field of the Dead is a good example of you don't need a Planeswalker to win. But it feels like every deck has at least 1, if not 2 or more.
You're ignoring the fact that the Golos decks pretty much all played 4 Teferis.
Yeah.
Do they?
Teferi, you forget Teferi's a Planeswalker.
No, I didn't know they were played, honestly. I don't really look at field decks that much because I just know what they do and kind of just...
Yeah. Pretty much every single one had 4 Teferi 3.
Yeah, so even Field had it, yeah.
Yeah, so you just gotta... It's one of those things where it's at this point, it's look at Planeswalkers and then build around them instead of... Or maybe not build around them, but build your deck and then be like, all right, I guess I just have to slap 8 Planeswalkers in this deck. And deck's perfect.
I think part of that is because they printed 36 of them. It's like, if you print that many Planeswalkers into a set, some of them are going to be broken, and it seems like quite a few of them ended up being pretty broken. So
Oh, yeah.
I think maybe that set, War of the Spark, maybe made it feel like there's more than normal, because there definitely are, and that it makes it feel a little bit oppressive. It's like, if you... I just want to point at Narset really quick as a Planeswalker that I think shouldn't have... There's like the big three mana Planeswalkers that I just don't think should have existed. There's Narset, Teferi, and Oko that just are like, maybe should have taken these ones back to the drawing board. The rest of them turned out okay-ish, though.
I think we mentioned it last week. The fact that Oko doesn't die to Fry is just like the most hilarious mistake.
Yeah, they gave us a way to play around it, but it doesn't work.
It doesn't kill it if they uptick for 2. And apparently they released like a little bit of development knowledge about Oko, and apparently that was part of the design of the card, is they didn't want it to die to Fry because they thought it wouldn't be powerful enough. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean that you print it. Like, that if there's no answer for a card in the format, then that's a overpowered card. That's not...
Yeah, let's make a 5 mana spell that says you win the game that can't be countered, you know? Because if it could get countered, it's not good.
I mean, that reminds me of playing against Carnage Tyrant back when Ramp was good and they had Carnage Tyrant in the sideboard, and I'm just like, what do I do against this?
That's my thing, is Carnage Tyrant was a card that kind of reminds me of Oko in that it's just, it warps the entire format. You can't play draw, go, control in a format with Carnage Tyrant because sometimes you'll just get hit by a Carney T and you can't remove it with your spot removal and you can't counter it, so you have to have a board wipe somewhere.
Or you have to have creatures to trade with it, and then you end up 2-for-1ing yourself.
Or more.
Yeah, and Oko, I agree, Oko definitely feels like that, where it's like, it forces your deck to be a certain way because you have to respect this threat.
Right, and I still don't think he's that bad in Standard. I don't think he should have been printed, though. I'm really surprised that the set after we had 36 Planeswalkers or whatever, they printed 3 just as Chandra, and then their normal, like, Lorwyn 5 style.
Yeah, and that was before the podcast, but we were talking about it at the time that it was really weird that they were doing more Planeswalkers. We're like, we just got 36. Do we really need a Chandra-based set?
Well, like, even if they did the Chandra-based set, why did we need the Lorwyn 5 style core set walkers? We have 36 Planeswalkers who fill every color identity. You could just have those. You don't need more. And aside from Vivian, has anyone played any of the Planeswalkers from core set? Like the actual rare ones or mythic ones? And Chandra.
I'm trying to think of what they are. I know there's...
I play Cavalcade, so I do play a 3-mana Chandra.
Yeah, I played the Chandras. I haven't played any of the other colors, though.
The new Ajani is just awful.
Yeah, the white, the Johnny in M20 was pretty bad. And I think that's part of the problem is that they had to get weird with their design because they had so many walkers in such a short time. I feel like maybe that's why Oko is the way he is. They had to get creative to make him stand out from the other walkers. And then they didn't know how to balance the abilities they came up with.
So I'm going to point this out right now. There are, take a guess at how many non-M20 Chandras there were before M20.
There were 14? 12 or 10? It's more than 10, I know.
There were 10.
Okay.
And they printed 4 in M20, including the Planeswalker deck one. There were 4 Chandras in M20. Why?
We're getting that with Teferi in with the next core set where we get 3 Teferis. I'm just like, no, this is not a good way to design these. Don't print 3 of the same walker into a set.
Make this a different game at this point.
This is actually a pretty good thing for October. Planeswalkers remind me of horror movies.
There's just too many of them. Too many and overdone and doing the same thing over and over again.
More than that, like, in horror, you want to have something be mysterious. Like, you want the ghost to sound, like, legendary. Like, oh, it's the ghost of evil estate, and this person died here, but we don't know how, and it's kind of evil, and you hint at it. And then
you find a pentagram in the basement.
Yeah, super spooky.
Yeah, and you find, like, a pentagram in the basement or something. And I find that Magic has really had that same feel with a lot of cards. Like, you look at some of the old cards, like a lot of the old legends too, like it reminds me of like Dakin Blackblade, like the old legends like that, where they don't explain a whole lot about them, and you can like read the stories they have about the cards or like what's going on in the storyline, but it feels like this legend you're being told through the card. And then they would like reference it in like Future Sight and stuff like that. And it always felt like kind of like a fairy tale almost. Hey, look, Throne of Eldraine. It kind of feels like a weird fairy tale that you just kind of hear about. And then now they have like Chandra, who's like this realized character and has been in almost every set. So she's not as cool anymore. She used to be like one of my favorite characters too, but I see her too much. It's just too much of a good thing.
Yeah, Chandra got printed, and, you know, it was this cool, like, ooh, scary. It's a horror movie, like you said. It's like, ooh, scary horror movie. And then now it's just become a crappy jump scare that you expect every single time you play the game.
Well, and Planeswalkers are the same way. It's like, when you first start playing Magic and you get your first Mythic Planeswalker, that was a cool feeling.
Yeah, you're shaking a little bit when you pull it. You're like, oh.
Well, and now it's just like, oh, I pulled that Planeswalker. I pulled a Garruk. He's not playable, so I don't really care anymore. And I have like 6 Garruks over here, and all of them are more playable than this one, so...
Yeah, let's not even talk about how they just completely took the joy of getting a Planeswalker with War of the Spark. Like, imagine it's your second set. Your first set was Ravnica Allegiance.
Imagine opening up like either the new Ravnica sets right before War, and you get like a Ral Zarek. Or like a Domri, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, you get your Dovin, and you're like, whoa, even though it sucks. And you're like, whoa, I got a Planeswalker. And then you go to the pre-release, the next one, you're like, I got 6 Planeswalkers in my pool. And then like, yeah, I got 8.
War the Spark, I remember when they announced it was going to be 36, and you're like, I feel like this might make me sick of Planeswalkers. And you're like, yeah, I'm kind of sick of Planeswalkers now.
I've been sick with them since like Oath of the Gatewatch.
And the thing is, they aren't gonna stop. We got the box art for Theros Beyond Death or whatever, and Elspeth is on it, so she's probably gonna be a Planeswalker in the set.
Well, we'll come to that when we come to it.
I don't want to talk about that at all. Not even for a second.
I mean, and really quick, I want to say, Planeswalkers, I don't think are all bad. Like, they can be very good. The problem is that from a gameplay perspective, you need a good way to hate on them. Otherwise, they can take over the format. And they need to be used, sparingly. Like you said, you need to have them be interesting. And they can't be interesting if we're flooded with them.
The other issue is so many of them just like kind of fit the same bill of just like this value engine. Imagine if for a second that we said, next set, we're going to reprint the Great Henge in different color combinations 36 times. And you kind of get the problem. You can't have 36 decent value engines in the same standard format, because then the decks that can exploit that are just going to be really good. And it's kind of crazy how...
So, I just want to put my 2 cents in here on how I like Planeswalkers. And you have to go all the way back to good old Conspiracy Take the Crown. You know who I'm talking about, guys?
Kaya?
Yes. That is a good Planeswalker design. That's a good Planeswalker.
You might want to say what it does, because I don't know what it does.
Okay, so 2 and Orzhov, so 2 white-black. Legendary Planeswalker Kaya. Has a 0, it says exile Kaya or up to 1 target creature. Then return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep, and you lose 2 life. So that's its top ability right there, is a 0. And then you've got a -1, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. And then -2, each opponent discards a card, you draw a card, starting at 5 loyalty. I think that's perfect. It has 2 good abilities. It has like a mini lightning helix on it, -1. Has a little hand disruption plus card value and -2. Also, you just reset it for 0 and you lose life. It's a very fair card in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just need to change what they do with walkers a little bit. They kind of tried to with the passive abilities, and then we ended up with Teferi and Narset and Nissa, yeah. And those are cool, but like, good experiment, didn't really work out. I kind of like that they're still trying to experiment. I think that's kind of the problem with the decks right now, is that they are doing these crazy things, and sometimes when you do crazy things with your game, it breaks. That was a long tangent on Planeswalkers.
But I think to sum up all of our feelings, we like them, but there's way too many of them, and if there's way too many now, wait until 2 more sets come out before War of the Spark rotates.
Excuse me, you guys like Planeswalkers.
Sorry. I like Planeswalkers. I just don't like them being in literally every single deck because they're the best thing to be doing.
I don't know if they even deserve to be in every set. I want a set with no Planeswalkers for once.
Oh my lord, that'd be so nice.
Everyone's been saying that, and I'm like, I can't disagree with them. I don't understand why... For example, why are there artifacts in every set? Like, I get that. I get that they do certain things in, like, draft environments, and they are part of Magic, but just try it one time, Wizards. Just take one of your card types, and then just don't print it. Just see what happens.
Yeah, stop limiting yourself. Stop saying every deck or every standard has to have some artifacts that do things in it. Every standard has to have Planeswalkers. Every standard has to have... mess with it a little bit. Like, you don't have to break the color pie, but do something a little bit different with the cards in the set. Yeah, you don't just have to change the mechanics.
We probably aren't getting a set with like no sorceries, no instants, no creatures, or no lands, but just like cut enchantments from one of the sets. See what happens. Just do completely artifacts. Maybe it'll break.
I mean, wait, no. Don't do an artifact set. We'll have a worse standard on our hands. We've seen where that goes.
Okay, do another enchantment set, but like, I guess Theros is that.
Yeah, we're getting Theros, yeah.
All right, so moving on to something a little bit more interesting and more positive. Has anyone got a chance to play Pioneer yet? If you don't know what this is for the listeners, Pioneer was a new format they announced. It's kind of like a miniature modern. It goes from Return to Ravnica, and then it goes forward. So you've got like the last 5 years or so. And I'm kind of interested in it. I'm kind of hesitant to play it, but I did a couple of leagues on my stream on Saturday. It was fun magic. It's interesting.
I really like Pioneer. I especially like where it's at right now, where you can play anything because no one has any clue what is good yet. These are the early days of the format, and people are trying to break it, but they haven't yet. And it's so much fun to just be able to pick any standard deck from the last few years and just run it because, I mean, we have no clue what's good, so this might be it. It's so exciting to me. I ran into just straight up Gruul aggro, just running all the Gruul cards, all the best Gruul cards they could get over the last couple of years. Seeing Mono Blue Devotion, which is really cool. I'm playing Is It Phoenix?
Yeah, I did a league with Teamer Marvel because I remember how busted Aetherworks Marvel was, and that plays into our banned card for this week, where everyone was talking about Aetherworks Marvel being so busted in standard and it being something. Maybe I'm just bad, but Teamer Marvel is awful in this format.
I ran into that deck, and they did get to activate Marvel against me, but it whiffed, and the rest of the deck before that wasn't good enough to stop me. I mean, I'm playing Is It Phoenix with Treasure Cruise in it, so I'm also doing some busted things, but I just was able to pressure them, and then game 2 I brought in a Braid, brought in some counter spells, and they couldn't do much to me.
For a little bit more context, they haven't banned anything yet except for the 5 fetch lands in Khans of Tarkir. I could do a separate video on why I think it's silly for them to do the banning of the fetch lands, but that's another conversation. So basically everything is legal right now, though. So Treasure Cruise is legal, Dig Through Time, Aetherworks Marvel, the Felidar Guardians Saheeli Rai combo that makes infinite Felidar Guardians attacking. One of the decks I ran into while playing Teamer Marvel was Rally the Ancestors, which that's a deck to play.
It's interesting for sure. I am running Graveyard Hate just because of decks like that, because I didn't know what graveyard deck would be in the format, but I knew there'd be at least one, so I had the Tormod's Crypts ready for that. I ended up playing against Rally the Ancestors, and I beat them because I was packing Graveyard Hate.
Are people trying to play like an Abzan Siege Rhino deck at all or anything like that?
I have built no less than 3 versions of a green, black, white Abzan mid-range deck, have my Siege Rhinos in paper. I've played 4 practice matches. Do not play a Thoughtseize mid-range deck right now. You will lose so many games of Magic.
So even with like Whip of Erebos in there and everything, like get as many Rhinos as possible?
I like Whip. It's very, very slow for this format. I think that a lot of people were thinking that this format was going to be slower than Modern. I have not run into that yet. It needs more time. They need to ban some of these more powerful cards that don't fit with things like Siege Rhino if they want that to be the format.
Yeah, currently the Siege Rhino deck is the Rally the Ancestors deck, because you can run it in that. If you want to, but I've seen most people just trying to break the format with as much degenerate combo or really fast aggro as they can. Hazared, literally intact Hazared is in this format, and it is
intact. It's better. You get a
yeah, no, you're right. You get Skullcrack and Eidolon, and you get a lot of cards that Hazared could only dream of. But you also have Hazared with Ramanop Ruins and Castle Embereth.
You also Smuggler's Copter if you need more grind. You also have there's a lot of good red cards in this format, and I've been beaten into the ground by a lot of them.
I'm actually kind of predicting that red will receive a ban, something from it just to slow it down, because I think that's one of the decks to beat right now. There's not a lot that other decks can do against it. There's some good life gain, but it doesn't seem like enough against Hazaret. There's not enough ways to deal with Hazaret in the format.
We don't have like a Path to Exile or something like that.
Yeah, I would really like to see them print like Path in this format or something like that, because it would keep stuff like that in check.
Well, we do have Path to Exile if you pay 4 times the cost and target all of their attacking creatures.
Yeah, you can sell the wreckage them. You can also Declaration in Stone.
Utter End is
Deck in
also
Stone.
legal.
There's a couple of ways to deal with it, but they're not quite efficient enough, I think.
Dude, Deck in Stone deals you like 3 life, doesn't it?
No, Deck and Stone gives them clues.
Sorry, not Utter Unmaking or Anguish Unmaking.
Anguished Unmaking.
Also, they all, like, if I'm a red deck up against a red deck or a blue-red deck, it's like, you have to counter Hazoret or you're going to lose that game. It's tough to deal with. There's definitely ways to deal with it, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, that looks like it might be scary moving forward, but I don't know. It's still the first week of the format, so we don't know what's amazing.
Jeskai Ascendancy. Pleasant Kenobi put a video up about it. And it's Jeskai Ascendancy with Sylvan Ascendancy, so you turn all your lands into creatures, and then you make infinite mana through casting spells, basically.
Yeah, the Jeskai Ascendancy decks seem very good.
Yeah, they also don't seem busted is the nice thing. I mean, you can kind of do a like nuts turn 3 draw with the Ascendancy combo I was playing, but it doesn't happen that often, and the pieces are so like wonky that's their only game plan. You can't really switch to a mid-range deck after board. You just have to do your game plan.
I'd really love to see somebody playing that deck and they swing in their buffed creatures and then get hit by Salad.
Oh my god, that'd be so amazing.
That'd be really funny. I hope that happens. We get a clip of that at some point. I did want to bring up a couple of decks that I don't think have gotten enough love in that format. For one thing, I only recently saw someone using Monastery Mentor in like blue-white, and I think that is crazy. I think Monastery Mentor is just insane in this format.
That was something that was sideboard in the Jeskai Ascendancy deck, and I literally brought it in every sideboarded game because it was so good. It was insanely good. I cannot believe that more people are not playing with it. I saw Todd Anderson made an Esper Mentor list, and if I were to like go play in like the challenge that's happening today, or I don't know, a PTQ, I would pick that deck. It's Esper control, but you have the Mentor in there, and it looks like a modern deck, like legitimately.
A lot of the decks are in between modern and standard, and that's why I think people are so interested in this format. It plays a lot like modern, but slightly slower, and I know you said you didn't like it that it didn't have fetch lands. I actually really like that fetch lands aren't in it, because I get tired of seeing the same things in every format, and this one feels the same because it's like a repeat of old standards, but it also feels like it's almost to modern, so it's very similar to things that I like, but different, you know?
I don't like that fetch lands are banned because it means that they most likely aren't reprinting fetches in Zendikar, which needs to happen, and they would. I don't think they would run standard, and on top of that, it means that landfall is much harder to do as a mechanic. That was the reason why the fetch lands were originally reprinted in Zendikar, was because of landfall. You had these things that you could trigger your landfalls with, and I really want to see them do landfall again. They didn't do it last time, so I'm just sad over here. I'm just a sad jackal.
We already got one fixed fetch land. Maybe we'll get like 1 or 2 more in Zendikar. I don't know.
Yeah, Prismatic Vista in standard.
I could see that. I doubt it would happen just because they literally just printed that set.
The other thing that I want to talk about is a couple of decks that have flown under the radar that I think could be very busted. Number 1 is Kethis. Kethis combo hasn't been touched in the format yet. I don't know why I haven't seen anyone brewing it.
I guarantee that there are people working on it. It's just it's a hard deck to build.
So Kethis is kind of like KCI, where you know it's there, like you can see it in front of you, but it's just got to be pieced together at this point.
I think there's a couple of cards that seem like they scream degenerate combo, like that could be very good, like the Paradoxical Outcome decks as well, with Emery in the format and like Paradox Engine and Side. You look at it and you just go, there's something there, but I'm not a talented enough combo player to make it, so I'm going to wait for someone else to break it and then steal their deck maybe.
Sorry, I was trying so hard to make Emery Paradoxical Outcome and Emery work, and I'm not good enough.
I'm still trying to build that deck. I'm building a Jeskai Ascendancy Emery deck. and I'm trying to see exactly how I'm building it, but I've got the pieces there. I just need the right, combination of them all.
The other deck that I'm kind of excited to mess with is I really want to try Tamar Elementals, because that is still in Standard, but I think it could have a second life in Pioneer, because it doesn't seem like it's good enough for Standard. But I haven't gone through all of the stuff that's in Pioneer that you could play in the deck, but there's Master of Waves that makes Elementals equal to your Devotion of Blue. And it's if you have a Risen Reef on the field, you just get to draw 10 cards off of it. And it seems like you could play a really sweet mid-range deck. You might even be able to put energy in there for more value.
Is an idol on a elemental as well?
I think it might be. No, I think it's an avatar. I don't know. This is the thing, is I need to go through Scryfall and just find all the elementals and find the good ones and see what I can do.
It's
it seems... dang it. It's a spirit. Oh, that was one that I actually made and that has been being played as Blue-White Spirits. Blue-White Flash is coming back.
It's basically Bant Spirits, but the green is just for collected company.
Yeah, you just put in some green lands so you can cast Coco because it's too good to not have in the deck. But that deck looks sweet as well. As of right now, I would say if you're listening to this, get a loan account and get on MTGO and play, because you will never experience a new format like this. Or I shouldn't say never. You might see it again in 8 years when they do Pioneer 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, you're never going to see as open of a format as it is right now.
As when the format just starts and no one knows what they're doing, yeah.
You guys know me. I have to complain a little bit about this. I'm very excited to try out all the new... decks that come about in this format. I'm going to play it. I do need to complain a little bit because they switched a lot of the PTQs and the couple of PTs next year to this format basically overnight with no discussion of will it actually be playable? Maybe we'll find a busted combo deck in that time and we will not ban it quick enough because we're Wizards of the Coast. And we'll just have people playing for $250,000 with busted decks for half a year.
I'm not too worried about that because they came out of the gate with the announcement saying they were going to be monitoring the format. They are looking at specific cards they know to be broken. And if those cards kind of rear their ugly heads, they're willing to take aggressive bans against it. They told everyone that straight up, which I appreciate, because it means that people won't go buying into this deck thinking this is the most busted thing in the format, I'm going to win, and then it gets banned out and they lose their investment either. So that I really like.
But you're looking at it from a consumer standpoint where it's okay, if you buy into this, you know what's happening. I'm looking at it from just an esports kind of standpoint. You don't really have in normal sports, we are going to change the rules of the competitions that some of you are trying to qualify for halfway through the season or whenever we are in the current season. That doesn't happen. And that's basically what they did.
I'm going to give Wizards some credit here. They told us. They let everyone know it will be banned. You've got 2 months to prepare for these things. We're going to watch the format in that 2 months, and we're going to ban stuff aggressively. They didn't expect you to not be ready for the rules to be changed. They told you that the rules are going to be changed. And if anyone thinks they're not going to ban things from this, they are straight up crazy.
That's what I'm saying, is that they basically switch some of the PTs to this new format. And I don't think it's fair to... This is kind of the same thing that happens with Modern. And the reason why pros don't like playing it is that if it's just going to be a turn 3 format, if I'm just going to have to play this busted combo deck, there's not anything I can really do to prepare. And I think Pioneer is going to present with the same type of gameplay, where it's just, oh, here's this busted combo deck, well, we're going to ban it. Oh, there's another busted combo deck, well, we're going to ban it. And you just have to keep on this treadmill of switching to broken things until they eventually get the format in a good spot. And maybe it just comes out that everything's fantastic, February and March comes around, and we qualify for the PT, and the PT is great, and it's a great format and everything's fantastic, but look at Standard and tell me that you believe that's what's going to happen.
I think it's comparing formats and the balance of them is maybe counterproductive, because I think it'd be easier to ask someone who played during Extended and ask them what that was like, because that's a lot more what this is like than like Standard or Legacy.
I'm just saying that Wizards of the Coast has been weird with bannings recently. They finally seem to have got like the right ban in Modern with banning Faithless Looting, but that format hasn't really been fixed, and I think that's part of the reason why they want Pioneer is they don't know how to fix it. If they don't know how to fix Modern, how will they know how to fix Pioneer, which we've had this first week, and it does feel very Modern-like.
I see what you're saying, and it is worrying. I'm just thinking that maybe they'll be able to handle this, because they kind of, since it seems like all the best decks are like souped up versions of Standard decks, they already know what's a problem. They don't need to. I think the problem that they have with Modern and banning it is that they don't know what causes the format to be as degenerate as it is. Because every time they seem to ban something in Modern or print something, it makes it worse. So I think with this one, though, they have a chance to like just start fresh. We know what's going to be a problem. We'll watch it, and hopefully we'll be able to fix it and make it a good format. And so far, it seems like it'll be okay.
I just think it's a lot to expect people to pay like $30 online to play PTQs with this, and they added all these PTQs or changed them. I can't really find verification as to if they switched these PTQs to Pioneer or if these are additional invites that they added to try to promote it.
It is interesting that they just immediately are like, here's new format, here's support for it, you get to play PTQs with this format. That was completely out of left field.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, is it would have been nice, and I understand that they wanted it to be a big hype, like just, oh, there's this brand new thing, here's tournaments to play in. That I get. It's beautiful from a marketing standpoint, very good work on that. I think it would have been better if they announced it like in September. That way people had an idea of what they were getting into. We would have had more time before the PTQs to actually figure out the format and do testing. I think the big thing that's like bothering me is that the PTQ for this is legitimately about a week and a half after the format was announced. I think that's too soon. I think you need a couple more weeks where to give them time to announce bans and like change the format to something that isn't just broken.
I think they're doing that on purpose. I think the PTQ being so close is them trying to motivate people to break the format so that they can find out what's broken. I think that's actually like a strategic choice by them.
Well, I guess we will find out.
I'm excited to see what ends up being broken. Like, is this a format where I will be able to play Treasure Cruise and it doesn't get banned? Because I've played Treasure Cruise. It doesn't seem that bad so far. So, I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens.
I'm not willing to say anything is broken. I thought Aetherworks Marvel was going to be broken, and that deck seems anemic and kind of unplayable. Maybe I'm just not playing the right version.
I'm not sure either. Energy, I feel like, is going to be a problem, but like, it's all these mechanics that I feel like should be a problem, and nothing has taken over the format yet. It has been 4 days, so still very early, but I haven't even seen anything starting to arise that like I don't think that my deck could deal with in some way. It's crazy. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Justin, you've been very quiet. What are your thoughts?
I haven't really had much to say about this. I don't know. I understand both your guys' points here. I would just say that the aggressive banning is both a good and a bad thing. Because, yeah, you're trying to, like, bait out all the broken decks and stuff like that. But on the other end of this, like, you're making people waste their money. Like, you were explicitly saying, hey, we're going to make you waste your money for the first X amount of time of this till we get it all figured out.
If you buy in, they said that, I think, so that people would be like, hey, practice with proxies, don't buy the cards yet, you dum-dums.
Because we have no Pioneer Masters. They're not trying to sell like a set off of this.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I like that. They're not... They are kind of ignoring that they charge money to play in the format Q on Magic Online and the PTQs, but
That is a bit of a bummer.
They
yes.
they are not using this as like a vehicle to get money out of people, which it feels like they've been doing quite often recently.
So, the one archetype that I have seen completely die right now, and I understand why it's not that good right now, but I feel like it's going to get slept on, that somebody's going to bring it to a PTQ and just annihilate with it, is our good old friends, the Eldrazi.
I didn't even think of that. You make a really good point. I mean, we don't have original Zendikar, but there's still a lot of good Eldrazi in this. And
Dude, they ran standard for a while.
yeah, you're not wrong. I think there could be a colorless aggro deck in the style of colorless Eldrazi. There's probably a good amount of support for it.
Yeah, not to mention Ugin from War of the Spark got printed, which makes your Thought-Knot Seers cost 2 mana.
On turn 6.
I had the idea the Turbo Emrakul deck that I want to build is just going to be a deck that's built around ramping and filling the graveyard to power out an Emrakul as quickly as possible. Like that was a concept I had, and I wonder if just straight up ramp into Eldrazi is a deck that could dominate the format, because that seems very powerful as well.
Yeah, I think Eldrazi are not being talked about enough for how much they ran standard and modern and legacy. They've won vintage tournaments. Like, Eldrazi are just good, and we shouldn't sleep on them right now.
We don't have the accelerants that those formats do in Eye of Ugin or Eldrazi Temple, but we do have, I guess, just
a lot of ramp.
Yeah, just green ramp spells will probably work. On top of that, a 4/4 for 4 that takes one of your opponent's cards, it's still pretty damn good. Like, that Thought-Knot Seer, I don't think is an okay card in any format.
Or Reality Smasher.
Eldrazi in general were a bunch of creatures that were like, hey, here's a good creature stat line wise, and then we're gonna throw like 2 extra abilities on it. There you go.
It's like that meme with God pouring stuff in. He's like, oops, and it's like good stat line and then good abilities, and he just accidentally drops the entire bag of good abilities into the Eldrazi.
What if we did like mono blue Eldrazi and then you just run like counter spells and Thought-Knot Seer and Narsets?
Could be a thing. You could try green white Eldrazi, kind of like the modern version does, you know, where you play like they play like Birds of Paradise type cards to ramp them out.
Also, our lovely listeners who I care about so much, this is all for you. I will build Eldrazi lists if they come to my mind, and I'll put them on the Patreon, but they're not for me because I refuse to play Eldrazi. So you enjoy that. You enjoy those wins. They are coming straight from my heart.
Yeah, I'll build them in paper. I've been stockpiling Eldrazi.
So I think we should gauge overall level of hype for Pioneer. How are you guys feeling? I'm pretty hyped for it. I'm enjoying it. I think I'm going to play this format quite a bit. I'm going to go to those PTQs.
1 to 10, it's a 6. I'm excited to play the format, but I also don't really understand why they made this. It's going to have the same problem Modern does in like another 5 years, so I think they should just do something like extended that rotates slowly, because otherwise we'll just get a bloated format like Modern, and then you'll have similar issues.
But we don't have Affinity.
Abolish all formats but Legacy and Standard. Come on, you cowards.
Make Commander a PTQ event.
I'd be down. I'd play some CEDH as a PTQ. Are we doing 1v1 or free for all?
8-person pod.
Oh my gosh.
But I guess my hype level, I like it. I've been brewing a little bit on it, but I'm not sure how much I'm honestly going to play it.
Fair enough, yeah.
Well, guys, I think that's going to be us for the week. There wasn't a lot of news. We kind of already talked about it. Mythic Championship, Javier won. Grats again. And Pioneer got announced. So we'll probably be talking about Pioneer. I'll try to get some more games in with it. So if you're hyped for that, like these guys are, come back next week. Maybe we'll have some deck lists up on the Patreon for you guys. If you want to check out that Patreon, it's patreon.com/the Unbanned Podcast. You can check out me. I'm Jake the Jackal pretty much everywhere. Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. Don't have a lot on the YouTube, but maybe we'll put some Pioneer content up there.
Stream votes.
Jordan is it Fox everywhere, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. He's been doing a lot on YouTube. Great content over there if you like little daily bits of gameplay. Justin, I actually got called out this week because I have been saying all of his screen names wrong, and apparently it has made it so people have had trouble finding him. So
I don't know why you brought me into there. You said Justin and I. It's your fault.
His name is dubious_Justin on Twitter. And then on Twitch and YouTube, he is dubious_challenger. The underscore is important because the way Google works says you will not find him if you do not put it in.
Dubious Challenger was taken on all of these. So
which is terrible.
I ain't giving up my Dubious Challenger name.
Yeah, you are the only dubious challenger on this podcast. You don't need an underscore.
You know it.
Well, guys, thank you once again for listening, and we will see you next week. But ban Aetherworks Marvel? You probably don't have to ban Aetherworks Marvel. I think it's fine.
I mean, ban it anyway. Who needs to power out Eldrazi on turn 4?
Oh, why did I not think to do Omniscience?
Oh my gosh.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening.
Later, everyone.
No, don't go, everybody. Please, no.